Hi everyone, it's K-Red, and welcome to my channel. On this channel, we experiment with doodles, drawing, pen and paper as a way to find calm, relax our mind, and process the thoughts of our day. Today's doodle is a simple random patterns. Whatever comes to my mind at the moment, it's a great way to unwind and relax and just enjoy. If you have time, grab a pen, grab some paper, and doodle along. Doesn't have to be like mine, just fun to doodle together. Sometimes when you first sit down, your page can feel large. Now this is not a large paper, it's just a 5.5 inch by 8.5 inch. It's a little sketchbook I got. I think it's just a generic brand, but I like the size of it. And I'm not real sure when I start out if I'm going to do it horizontal or vertical. I usually do most of my drawing a little bit at a diagonal anyway, but let's just see where it plays out. So the best way for me to start is by these two lines that divided it. Now all I'm focused on is that small section in the bottom, and I divide it even more. So now I add the triangles. Then within each triangle, I do a pattern. At the beginning of my papers, I really try hard to find a way to get kind of in the groove, to kind of calm myself, to slow my breathing, and kind of set aside the busyness of the day. By doing these small, thin lines, they're not perfect by any means, but they do force me to slow down a little bit and to focus. If you have trouble making a straight line that you're happy with, start by making them shorter and doing a lot of them. Filling in small areas with thin lines, that repetition will build that muscle memory, will build that calm, and you'll get used to it. I went ahead and put a few circles in it just to make it look a little more dynamic, to add a little bit of an interest in it. And then I fill in between with these little sun arcs. Not for sure where I'm going. I never have a pattern, a random pattern like this pre-designed. It's always just one line after the next, whatever draws your attention. In my experience, that is what makes a difference to me. We all have stressful lives. We all have stressful things in it. Often it's a stressful job, sometimes it's family, sometimes it's just getting by. But this is what I have learned, and this is what I do to really kind of create that calm. I enjoy watching TV as much as the next person, going out and doing things. But for me, taking 20 minutes, 30 minutes, to sit down with some pen and paper can make all the difference in my mood. So now we're going to move forward to the next section. Switch to a nice, thick, dark pen. The pens I use are the Micron pens, and I buy them in a pack that usually has a 1, a 3, a 5, an 8, and then like an O one, so a real thin one and a thicker one. If you're able to do that, if you're able to splurge and be able to buy those pens, having that variation can really help. Makes it a little bit easier on you to have some change in the thickness of the pens without having to have complete control over it. So now inside here, I decide just to do these little square spirals. It's another pattern that can get away from me if I'm not paying attention and purposely slowing myself down. So breathe, take time. When you think of it, turn your paper. It'll help make the angles different so that they could be a little more random. Trying to be random on purpose is one of the hardest things to do. My mind likes order. It likes things where they belong, the symmetry of it. But once again, we're doing this to push our mind, to give us some new experience, and to release some of those rules, some of those structures. So by turning our paper, it helps us to add that element of change. As we move through this paper, you'll see that just because I finish one area, I stop doing one section of it, it doesn't by any means mean that I am done with it. It just means that it's lost my interest at the moment. These are perfect for people who are having problems being focused on one thing for a long time. A real large mandala, a real large Zentangle page. You could be doing the same thing for a very long time, and that takes practice and patience and is a really good mind work. But sometimes, after a hard day, I don't want to have to work that hard. I want to be able to do it until the mood passes me, and then I can move on to something else. So now we have to decide, where do we go next? Kind of lost interest in these spirals. So I go ahead and I give myself another section. And what is the opposite of small spiral squares? Why, a large bubble circle. So that's what I do. I start drawing some large circles in here. I try to mush them pretty closely up to each other. I don't draw a full circle so that it looks like maybe one's on top of the other or one squished next to each other. Looks like maybe they have to finish behind one of the other sections. And then I'll go in and fill in the dark area between the circles. Little triangles are just the spots where the lines don't meet. So it has a nice dark background. While I'm doing this, I'm thinking about what I wanted to do inside of them. I'll often put a little splash of color on it, a little bit of a black on it. Sometimes I'll do a circle within the circle. I considered adding a pattern inside it, just some lines or something like that, so that they would have, similar to the triangles, a pattern in it. But I couldn't decide. And the nice thing about these random doodles with no pattern, with no rules, is I don't have to decide right now. I can keep working this paper, keep working this project, and see where I end up, see what I decide that I like. So then I give myself another section, and I start making what I was hoping would be a real wavy line. I did not want it to be a straight line. Of course, as I start going, it kind of levels itself out, so then I add a few more waves into it, just to keep it moving. I decide I want some square checkers. And I just alternate, no ruler, just by sight. They're not all the same size, but I try to make them as generally close as I can. And rather than having a true checkerboard, I wanted a space in between the next row, so I added this dash down it. Looks almost like a road. And then I go and I add the next line of the checkerboard. This is a great way to slow myself down, to make myself do some repetition. This repetition where I don't have to think about what comes next, I don't have something difficult to draw, I don't have to keep track of my spacing. It's all visually easy, is where my mind starts to unwind. I might process some of the emotions or the thoughts that I've had during the day. I don't allow myself to obsess or work those problems. And by focusing on trying to make the squares the right size or filling the squares in completely, it helps me not to over-focus on the problems, but yet still calm my mind and relax my emotions. Can't overemphasize how important it is to breathe. Sometimes I make a point of taking a big, slow breath in between each square. So, what's next? Well, let's try these little, I guess they're leaves, little ovals. I do apologize that my hand is still in the way of drawing. I am fortunate that my husband and I have been able to set aside some space for me in a spare room to be able to kind of set up my recording. I've been enjoying it. I've been doing it just since January, so just 8 months, and I have really had a lot of fun trying to learn the programs, trying to learn the systems. I'm going to be working hard on the next few weeks to find an angle for the camera where maybe you could see the drawings more and my hand less. I appreciate your patience as I work through this. If you have any suggestions or ideas, I'd love and be very interested. But I add a little accent inside each of these leaves, do some auras along the outside. That is going to be a recurring theme in this project. I'd like on each page to have some kind of reoccurring themes. Squares, circles, lines, auras. So I add these spirals on top, kind of enjoying it. I like the weight and the darkness at the bottom of each of those little oval shapes. So I decide it's time to move on. Decide to make these large square and rectangle square spirals. Basically the baby spirals we did previously, only big, huge ones. I really wish when I had done this, looking back in this voiceover, I wish that I had gone a little slower. I wish I'd taken my time, made the lines a little straighter. I think this could be a really neat pattern. I'm probably going to be practicing this, so don't be surprised if you see it in an upcoming short. I think if I take my time and draw these squares and really work at it, it could be really cute. So I'm really glad I put it in this project. It's a great place to start to practice. And then we'll see in the next few weeks if I find the time to add it into a little short. I'll make sure I post it. I think this is a pattern worth improving. A great filler for different shapes. I didn't play with it this time, but I think it'd be interesting to play with some thick lines, either alternating it or within it. We'll do a little bit of shading on this at the end. I'm not real happy with the way the shading turned out, but once again, that's what we do, is we learn. And these random pages of just straight up doodles are a great place to experiment, to learn, and to see. Well, everyone, as I edit this video, I realize that we've gone just a little too long. It's a little over 30 minutes, so I'm going to break this up into 2 videos, so we're going to stop right here. I'll post part 2 in just a couple days, but until then, here's a quick peek of how this page finishes out. I thank you all for joining me. I hope you had fun doodling today. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon.